Could a Mantis shrimp have beaten a Roman gladiator? And I don't mean could it annoy one, could it fully hands-on win? A fully armored gladiator trained for combat, peak physical condition against a shrimp the size of your hand. I ran the numbers on this and the answer is definitely not what you think. Now, before we get into the actual fight, I need you to understand what a mantis shrimp actually is. Because most people have heard that mantis shrimp can punch hard, but nobody explains what that actually means at the physics level. And once you understand the physics, the gladiator matchup makes a lot more sense. So that's where we're starting. Now, the peacock mantis shrimp, about 4 to 7 inches long, lives in shallow tropical reefs. Looks like someone designed it in a fever dream. It's iridescent, almost cartoonishly colorful, and it has 16 types of photoreceptors in its eyes. In us humans, we got 3. Meaning that it can see wavelengths of light that we don't even have names for. But that's not why we're here, because they're part of the dactyl club. That's the name for the appendage it uses to strike. It's a calcified hammer-shaped club at the end of its raptorial arm. And when it swings that club, it does so at 50 miles per hour. That's 23 meters per second, accelerating of 10,000 Gs. And just to put that in better context, a fighter pilot's black out around 9 Gs. A bullet leaves a .22 caliber barrel at around 370 meters per second. The mantis shrimp isn't quite there, but the difference is the distance traveled. A bullet has a barrel. A mantis shrimp has about half an inch of swing arc, and it hits still at 23 meters per second. So with that being taken into account, the strike generates about 1,500 newtons of force, which is roughly the equivalent of a 340-pound weight dropped onto a single point smaller than a dime. But the part that actually broke my mind when I was actually trying to break it down isn't even the whole hit. The mantis shrimp's dactyl club moves that fast through water, it creates a low-pressure zone behind it. That zone collapses so fast, it forms a sort of cavitation bubble, which is essentially a small pocket of vapor that almost instantly implodes. And when it implodes, it releases a shock wave, a flash of light, and heat reaching around 8,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So the mantis shrimp is hitting you with the mechanical strike, and then a fraction of a second later, with an underwater explosion generated by just pure physics. And it can throw that combination 4 to 5 times before a human nervous system actually has processed the first hit. And that's insane. So that's the mantis shrimp aspect. Now let's talk about what it's actually up against. A Roman gladiator. And I'm being specific here, we're talking about a secutor or a myrmeo, the heavy armor class from the 1st century AD, which typically fight in one of 2 armor configurations. Now, there is lorica squamata, which is an overlapping bronze scale sewn onto a leather or fabric backing. It's designed to distribute impact across multiple plates simultaneously. Think of it kind of like fish scales on a person. And any force that hits one scale is immediately shared by the 3 or 4 scales overlapping it. Or the same thing, lorica, but hamada, which is essentially like chainmail. Thousands of interlocking iron rings, different distribution mechanisms. The rings flex and absorb rather than just rigidly deflect everything. But both of these armor types were specifically engineered to handle the types of impacts that humans were delivering to one another in close combat, whether it was sword thrusts, spear tips, or blunt trauma from shields. However, they were not engineered for a mantis shrimp, but we can run the math anyway. A single mantis shrimp can punch at 1,500 newtons, landing on any of their armor. For example, if it got punched, the scale will distribute that force across roughly 4 plates. So each plate absorbs about 375 newtons, cool gas. Bronze, at that thickness, we're talking about scales that are roughly 1 to 2 millimeters. And they have a yield strength of around 200 to 250 megapascals. Just stick with me here, but 375 newtons spread across a scale surface area of about 2 square centimeters gives you just about 2 megapascals of pressure. And that is well below the yield strength of bronze. So with all that being said, essentially that boils down to that punch 1 does not actually penetrate anything and the armor will hold. So on punch 1, the gladiator wins, but this is where it starts to get interesting. Mantis shrimp doesn't throw one punch and then just wait for anything else to happen. It's throwing 4 to 5 strikes at a time, and the human nervous system can't register that it's hit before all those connect. So the signal from your skin to your spinal cord to your brain takes somewhere between 50 and 100 milliseconds. But a mantis shrimp can complete a full strike in about 2 to 3 milliseconds. You literally cannot feel the first hit before the fourth one is actually landing. So it's not if the armor can handle one hit, it's whether it can handle 1,500 newtons in the same spot 4 or 5 times in a row faster than the Gladiator can actually adjust their stance or shift the shield. And the answer there is different. Mental fatigue is real, especially at stress concentrations, and scale armor has natural stress concentrations at every single seam, every single overlap point, every rivet. And when you apply repeated high force impact to the same point faster than the material can actually elastically recover, you get progressive failure. Essentially, the scales start to crack at the mounting points, the leather backing starts to compress. The underlayer, which on a Gladiator is usually a padded linen or something like that, but it essentially just absorbs the residual force, but it's not infinite. So by the third or fourth consecutive strike to the same point, there's a little bit of a gap. And a mantis shrimp will absolutely find that gap because they hunt for this exact reason. They hunt by precision. They target the exact same point on a crab shell over and over until it fractures. That's their entire hunting strategy. That's their purpose built to do exactly that. Now, the Gladiator also has a scutum, which is essentially just like a large rectangular shield, and that changes the geometry significantly. If the Gladiator gets the shield between himself and the shrimp, the calculus shifts again because the scutum is a thick laminated wood and a bronze or iron facing, so it just makes it super hard to punch through. But the thing about the mantis shrimp is that it's 4 to 7 inches long. The Gladiator scutum covers his entire torso, but the mantis shrimp is going for the gaps, the wrist, the ankle, the neck. And a mantis strike to an unarmored human wrist, and Gladiator's hands and wrists have limited protection, would either shatter the radius and ulna. Clean through. That's documented. Researchers who've handled them have needed surgery if they do it wrong. So could a mantis shrimp beat a Roman Gladiator? In open water where the mantis shrimp can move freely, dictate the engagement, probably yes if it targets the right spots. The wrist, ankle, or neck exposed by armor gaps are all one-shot knockouts. The Gladiator really has no realistic way to strike back against something moving at 50 miles per hour that he can't even feel hitting him. In a coliseum on dry sand where the mantis shrimp is out of its element and physically compressed by being on land, the Gladiator smacks. The Gladiator wins, not because of the armor, but because the shrimp it can't breathe. But the armor question, which is what this is really about, is genuinely more interesting than the fight itself, in my opinion. Like the armor, it'll survive one punch, maybe punch 2, but by punch 4 or 5 at the same point, there's going to be structural fatigue, and a mantis shrimp is better at finding and exploiting structural fatigue than any weapon a Roman blacksmith ever made. Like the Gladiator trained for 10 years, the mantis shrimp would just be showing up, and the biology does not care about your training record. When you're in nature like the mantis shrimp is, this is what they do on a daily. With all that being said, if you want more of these, I do a whole series where I take some absurd animal hypotheticals and actually run the numbers and actually take what I've learned through veterinary medicine and try and apply the biology to it as well. But if you're interested in this, definitely leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.